We're back. And it is now, it's August.
And it's still hot.
Yeah, well, probably won't get cold until January, but nonetheless, Pastor, we are back. And, hey, I think Revelation, I think it spoke to some people. I think some people learned something last month, and for the first time, we're going back-to-back Bible studies.
Wow.
Back-to-back.
Is that legal?
We're gonna find out, but next month we'll have some fun, because Pastor, as always, I stay in the know on YouTube, and I have plenty of videos for you to watch.
Do we have more TikTok faith?
A little bit, but this one is less of like outrageous claims, more of just some fun things that we'll talk about next month. But this month, Pastor, we are going to talk about Jesus.
I thought every podcast
you would think,
okay.
But we are going to talk about Jesus, but not in a traditional way that we normally do on this podcast, where we're talking about how much he's awesome, or excluding him from top 5 lists because he'd be too good and too great. Pastor, today, the name of this series this month is Man, Do I Have a Story for You? And we are going to talk about...
Where do you come up with this stuff?
Very quickly, and usually right on camera. But
okay.
But we are going over some of the parables in the New Testament, mostly Matthew, but a little bit of Luke as well.
I have a question for you before you get started. Did you ever think in your lifetime that you would be doing Bible studies and be sitting here going over stuff with your dad?
No, thought I'd be dead by now. So... yeah, well, I did make good choices. We're going to talk about that in the little snack at the end of the month.
Okay.
A little preview of that.
You sure we don't want to start with a little snack and then move on to the main course?
We would love to do that after I just said that, but we will get there, I promise. But no, okay. I did not think so. But this is a blessing as always. But Pastor, as you can see, and the viewers can't really see, but we actually took notes. Okay, we're actually prepared for this more so than we have in the past. Pastor,
I've always taught you to take notes and be prepared. You're a Boy Scout.
I am an Eagle Scout. Can't take that away. I earned that one. Okay. So, Pastor, we're going to start in Matthew 13.
Okay.
And this is Jesus and his story of the farmer. So, this is verses 1 through 23 of Matthew. Now, look, Pastor, for the sake of time and for the sake of giving explanation, the reason I took notes this time is what I didn't like about Revelation is I was reading way more than we were talking.
Okay.
So I kind of highlighted it, and I will tell the listeners, as I always do, go back and read it for yourself, and hopefully you get a different revelation, something you can share with us in the comments. Pastor, the story of the farmer is a well-known story if you grew up in church, or you never listened to parables before, but this is where the farmer spreads a seed on 4 different grounds.
Okay.
So there's 4 different grounds, like I said. So they're just spread it on the road. Okay. And that is, you can literally take that at face value. You can just take it on the road. Now, obviously, back then it was dirt paths. Nowadays, you'd just be putting it on concrete. Obviously, a little different, but you get the idea. The next one is rocky ground. Okay. So no deep soil, more rock than there is necessarily fruitful soil. The next place that the farmer had his seed spread was the thistle or the thorns.
Okay.
And then there's good ground, which is where you should put your seed. And honestly, we could argue that maybe this farmer needs to tighten up, and you're going to find out later that it's all a metaphor. But in this story, Pastor, the disciples asked Jesus, why are you using stories? Why can't you just tell us what you're talking about? Why do we need to try to decipher what you're talking about, Jesus? And Jesus says to them that parables are used for the wisdom for those who hear it and understand it.
Right.
And for those who don't, they can't say that they didn't hear it, but they are blind to what the real meaning of it is.
Okay.
So to then take that, kind of gives later on in chapter 13, in verse 36, he gives the meanings of some of the stuff that he was talking about.
So, he gives the meaning to everything he said, but go for it.
Well, no, I'm talking about, in particular, where these seeds and things are going. So,
okay.
The seed on the road is those who hear it and don't quite understand it, and then the enemy is able to kind of take that knowledge and...
Oh, no. But you misunderstand. They can see it and understand it, and the enemy can still come in and steal it.
Okay. Yeah. That was...
So let me give you an example. You can be sitting under anointed teaching.
Yep.
and you could hear something that will revolutionize, change your life, change your trajectory, change whatever.
Yeah.
And the enemy knows that if that word takes root in your heart, you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah.
So what does he do? Causes misunderstanding, miscommunication, misfire, whatever. Something to get your mind off of that word and get that word out of your heart.
Yeah. Well, that's actually how Jesus describes the rocky road next. Because, like I said, he describes in the parable that the seed going into the rocky, it sprouts quickly because of the dirt, but then when the sun comes, it scorches it up.
Because it has no depth.
Right. And so for what my translation gave me revelation on was that they hear it and you're joyful about it. So it's that burning for Christ, that new Christian, I'm ready to tell everybody that I'm a Christian, I'm ready to tell everybody about God. But then when life throws you something that you didn't think, you thought you were going to be protected from, or you didn't think was going to happen, because now the enemy is trying to come and get that seed and extinguish your flame, that is when we start to lose that seed. So you sprout it quickly, you're excited to witness and do all those things, and then as soon as the enemy is able to put a roadblock in the way, you let it block you rather than hurdling it.
Just because people get born again and think that Christians never have problems, that's not what Scripture tells us.
No, it's not. And it's definitely not how life goes either, but it's a good story. So then, Pastor, we are then talking about the thistle. So this is the thorn bushes, the places like that. They hear it, and they live it for a little bit, and then again, when sin comes.
Oh, not necessarily sin. Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life.
Sure.
When life blows across you. Yeah.
Yeah, and really anything that you're kind of taking your eyes off of the things of God, and allowing other things to influence you, again, you begin to stray, and it chokes out that seed like the thistle and the thorn bush. So, and then in the final one, it's the good ground, right? So the good ground is that ground of you hear it, you live it, and you expound upon it, you apply it to your life, and you're a believer, a consistent believer, and all those things. Pastor, is that you think that's fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a very long parable for Jesus there. Again, it's verse 1 through 23, and then again he kind of explains it. But Pastor, for those who don't think that the Bible is a cohesive story across many timelines, the next parable in Matthew 13, Pastor, is the weeds in the wheat. Okay. So
okay.
I'm actually going to read this parable because it's much quicker than Matthew 13, 1 through 23. So starting in Matthew 13, verse 24, Jesus used another illustration. He said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a man who planted good seed in his field. But while people were asleep, his enemy planted weeds in the field and went away. When the wheat came up and formed kernels, weeds appeared. The owner's workers came to him and asked, 'Sir, didn't you plant good seed in your field? Where did the weeds come from?' He told them, 'An enemy did this.' His workers asked him, 'Do you want us to pull out the weeds?' He replied, 'No. If you pull out the weeds, you may pull out the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. When the grain is cut, I will tell the workers to gather the weeds first, tie them in bundles to be burned, but I will bring the wheat into my barn.'" So I don't feel like I have to go too crazy, but this is obviously a clear representation of the final days, as we talked about all last month in Revelation. So obviously we are the wheat in that story. Okay, anybody who believes is the wheat.
Okay.
But we live in a fallen world, and so around us are principalities working through personalities, and all kinds of other things that can and do try to attach themselves to us, attach themselves to our realm of influence, all those kind of things. But in the final days, he reaps his harvest, which is us. We talked about that literally all last month, and the rest of the bad things get bundled up and put into the lake of fire for eternity. So obviously that's a huge, I imagine it kind of went over a lot of people's heads when he was talking to these crowds about what he's talking about. Hopefully not the disciples, but they still didn't realize he was going to die and come back. So
yeah, but some of them had the idea, because they would go later and say, okay, so heard the story, what were you talking about?
Yeah, so. Yes. And that's also where he does that as well. So again, it's another great illustration of not only the Bible being cohesive, but also that he is coming again, because he even talks about it here without talking about it, right? Because he doesn't again, he's using parables. So we understand that with the knowledge that we have and the understanding, and if you're hearing it for the first time, hopefully you understand how that works, and if you followed us last month, you will also kind of be able to connect those dots. But then, Pastor, it's right after that. So he's talked about where seed goes and how it can be uprooted and tarnished, and how it can also be cultivated into something beautiful. Now we've also just talked about the rapture for the first time without saying the word rapture. Don't come in the comments. We know it doesn't say rapture, but nonetheless, this is one of the most commonly used, I often think sometimes misused, overused, not used correctly, misconstrued ideas in the Bible, and it's the mustard seed.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, the mustard seed is about the size of a pinhead, okay, give or take, and then you plant it, and as it grows, it becomes one of the biggest trees known to man. And it's a beautiful illustration that our faith, while we may feel like it's not big enough, can cultivate something massive, which is obviously God's power in our lives to work in and through us. But Pastor, why do you think he used a mustard seed because we're not too far off from the first time he lays down in the boat, or we're actually not too far removed, from when he laid down in the boat and called all his disciples ye of little faith. So why do you think he used the idea of a mustard seed to kind of characterize our faith?
Wow. So we did 12 minutes of this to get me to this question?
Well, I mean, it's been a while since I've asked.
What really would have been great if you'd have asked the Lord why he used a mustard seed.
Well, yeah,
but since you didn't go
right
that...
You're right here. They want to hear you.
Well, they would have heard from me anyway. But the mustard seed is really symbolic of our faith. And what I simply mean by that is faith is given to us in seed form. All the promises of God are given to us in seed form. And you and I both know that the seed doesn't do much good to stay in the packet and stay on the shelf.
Right.
We get seeds with the intent and purpose of planting them and causing them to be able to produce whatever the package says they're supposed to produce. Well, and you've heard me say this all your life, people have misconstrued, misunderstood what faith is and how it operates, and they think it's some kind of mystical, etherical thing that they can't grasp, understand, get a hold of, and none of that's true.
Yeah.
The Bible tells us in the book of Romans that God has dealt to every man, woman, and child the measure of faith. So it's given to us in seed form, and what it does is it's planted in our hearts, and it births us into a relationship with God. And as we continue to walk with God, that faith that he's given us is supposed to grow and expand and take over our lives, much like that mustard seed plant. It starts here, but then it grows to be, like you said, one of the biggest trees that's out there. Well, your faith, the longer you walk with God, your faith is supposed to be getting bigger, deeper, stronger, not lighter, less, and wilting.
Yeah. And so then, Pastor, and the second part of that, which, again, the mustard seed overtakes the whole parable there, but the other part of that same parable is about yeast, and how a woman uses yeast throughout the dough. Let me read it here. Verse 33 of Matthew 13. He used another illustration, Jesus. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman mixed into a large amount of flour until the yeast worked its way through all the dough. And then it says that he used illustrations to tell the crowds all these things. But so it's a very quick blink it and you miss it verse, which is why I don't think a lot of people probably, because the mustard seed gets like 3 verses before that. But Pastor, I don't think I really, I thought about it. I tried to understand yeast, and I'm wondering if, because it says, let me make sure I'm reading it.
Well, but understand your problem is you don't bake stuff.
I just think it says the kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman. In my head, when I thought about it, when I prayed about it, it seems like we are that yeast.
No.
Right. So that's why I knew I was wrong. So
not that you're necessarily wrong. But what did you just say a minute ago? Not that before it was we're the yeast. No.
Yeah.
Again, he's still referring to faith.
Okay.
Faith is supposed to work in your life to the point where it
works through you and you
permeates every area of your life.
Okay. So faith is the yeast, just like the seed.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes me. That's why they're together.
Yes.
We're all learning stuff together here on PJ. It's a good time. But that does make sense, right? Because if you let the faith work through you, then
But see, again, and you've heard me say this, and now you know why I say it. If you ever run across a situation or circumstance where the devil tells you that you don't have enough faith, you don't have enough yeast, you don't have enough mustard seed, why don't you just ask him, well, how much do I need to cause this to happen? Number one, he won't ever tell you the answer.
He doesn't. Yeah.
But number two, that's used as a diversion tactic to get you to think that it's not enough. Think about it. Faith the size of a grain of a mustard seed is enough to get you born again.
Yeah.
Enough to attach you to God. It's enough to get you to heaven.
True.
But the longer you live on this earth, that same trust and faith that you have in God is supposed to grow to where you can not only trust God for your salvation, not only trust God for your deliverance, not only trust God financially, not only trust God to heal you, but you can trust Him to use your life to minister to others.
Yeah, and I think that makes perfect sense. And any of you that bake that are listening to this, you understand it much better than I do, but I do understand the illustration and how important faith is. So thank you for that, Pastor. So to wrap things up, Pastor, we're going to look at a story about treasure, a merchant, and a net. Okay, that's the subtitle on my thing. So
a treasure, a merchant, and a net.
We're going to try to break this down because this first part, I think, kind of parallels another story. And again, as you guys have listened to us for almost 3 years now, you know that I bounce these ideas off Pastor live. So whatever he hears, it's his genuine reaction to how I interpret Scripture, and then I learn or I confirm, one of the two. So verse 44 of Matthew 13, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field. Mm-hmm. When a man discovered it, he buried it again. He was so delighted with it that he went away, sold everything he had, and bought that field.
Kingdom of God is a method. Kingdom of heaven is a place.
Okay. All right.
So when Jesus is explaining how the kingdom works, he's explaining God's method of doing stuff, of working in the earth.
Yeah.
Does that help clarify some things in your thinking?
I think a little bit. We'll see. We'll see if it keeps that same track, keeps going. But he was delighted with it, sold everything he had, and bought the field. Also, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant who was searching for fine pearls. When he found a valuable pearl, he went away, sold everything he had, and bought it. Okay. So, Pastor, this is where I try to draw parallels here, right? To not only understand things, but also to better give it to people who may have a better understanding of a different biblical story. Because I don't know how people have read Matthew 13 on purpose, but I think of the rich young ruler right here.
Okay.
Okay, because Jesus says, all right, go sell all your possessions and then follow me. And he said, now we know later on he does his thing, but when you find the things of God, it should be more valuable to you than anything that you have on this earth. Mm-hmm. Right?
Should be.
And that's what Jesus was trying to convey to the rich young ruler. So, again.
Well, he also wanted to convey to the rich young ruler that you don't have money, money has you.
No, yeah, there's much more to the rich young ruler than just that, but it made me think of him because it's what Jesus was hoping was conveyed to him in that moment.
Well, but like, think of it like this. Jesus knew what
replace Judas, please.
Yeah.
We need somebody else to replace Judas.
But not only that, but who better to replace him than somebody who was understood wealth and riches?
Yeah, because Judas was the Iscariot. But again, outside of trying to create a parallel for somebody to maybe understand a little bit better, when you find the things of God and you truly give it all to that, there's nothing on this earth that will ever satisfy you.
No.
Because it's His glory, His
and there's
mission.
nothing on this earth that should ever take its place.
That too, and that's a whole nother message for a whole nother time.
Yeah, a whole nother cast for a whole nother pod.
Right. But then the last little bit here that he talks about, also the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea. It gathered all kinds of fish. When it was full, they pulled it to shore. Then they sat down, gathered the good fish into containers, and threw the bad ones away. And then right here in verse 49 of Matthew 13, Jesus says, the same thing will happen at the end times. The angels will go out and separate the evil people from the people who have God's approval. The angels will throw the evil people into the blazing furnace or the lake of fire.
So, tie that to the wheat and the tares.
Yes. So it's exactly, I mean, he's doubling down. And actually between that story and this story, the parable, the disciples asked him about the weed and the wheat. So he had already explained it to the disciples. Now he's trying to get people to understand it a different way, maybe with something more.
Well, but see, here's something else that we don't understand. The one reason why the wheat and the chaff grow together is because in the beginning they look so much alike.
Yeah.
That is not until they mature do you see the difference in them, which is why the guy said, no, let them grow together. Because he knew when they mature, you'll be easy to separate one from the other.
Yeah. And Jesus is letting you know they're going to do the same thing at the end. So. And then to end up the whole chapter, I'm not going to read it, but Jesus' hometown goes ahead and rejects him. So, that's how you teach the truth.
Well, they reject him because he didn't come the way they thought he would.
Yeah.
He didn't appear and didn't act the way they thought he would.
They weren't looking for stories, they're looking for swords.
There you go.
That's just the tough part. But, Pastor, that's Matthew 13. Those are just a handful of parables, not only about end times, but also about how important the seed of faith is and just the seed of our belief in salvation is as well. And this is all before he died. So, but Pastor, do you have any closing remarks about parables or any of the parables that we listened to today?
There's always a deeper meaning than what you see on the surface. And hopefully we'll get into some of that as we go forward.
We will. And next week we will jump to the book of Luke. But as always, guys, as we ask you to, read the scriptures for yourself. I did glance over the first, 23 verses of this chapter. So read it for yourself and pray about it, meditate on it, and let the Spirit guide you into some revelation of your own. So until next time, go and grow with purpose. Peace.